So my name is Darren Whitfield. I'm an associate professor here at the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Social Work. My research area is in biomedical HIV prevention among gay and bisexual men in the United States. And I also do research on health disparities among LGBTQ communities. My work tends to focus on intersectionality, and so I like to examine the interplay between social markers and how those impact health outcomes. This fall, I'm going to be teaching the structural oppression class. Previous at my old institution, I also taught this version of class, and I like to create an environment that I consider to be a challenging space. What I mean by that is, particularly when talking about things around structural oppression, I find it useful to set a dynamic in the classroom where people can really explore and do a lot of introspection about their own ideas around different social identities and how those influence things like power, privilege, and oppression in our society. I use lots of different teaching modalities, so I am not one for lecturing. I do lots of group work in my classes, experiential activities. We watch films, I bring in guest speakers. Students will probably do some role plays in my classroom as well. So I think students should come prepared to be challenged. And it's always my goal that when you leave at the end of the year, there was an impactful moment for you in the classroom. When I got into the field, I actually thought I would be doing something much different. I always thought, oh, I'd be a clinician, I'd be a therapist. But after my first internship as an undergraduate student, I quickly discovered that I was really interested in not only clinical work, but thinking about the full spectrum of social work. So I spent a lot of time actually doing community level social work and then administrative social work before coming back to the academy. And I think for me, I came back to the academy because I felt as if we hadn't answered the big problems in social work, particularly as it relates to health inequities for people of color, and specifically in the field that I study, which is around HIV prevention and care, but also then LGBTQ individuals and their access to health and mental health services. And so that is what I did prior to coming here. I started off as a case manager at an HIV care clinic, and then I quickly moved to HIV prevention, and I worked with communities, mostly gay and bisexual men, around HIV prevention and engaging in healthy behaviors to prevent becoming infected with HIV. And I had a brief stint in government. I worked for the state of Virginia for a while, and I think it was actually there that I discovered and decided I wanted to get my PhD. Mostly because I felt like things weren't changing, but we had the answers potentially, right? We sort of knew, but there wasn't the research to back it up. And so that's when I said, well, someone has to do the research then, because I don't want to be 20 years from now sort of seeing the same things that I saw when I was in the field occurring in our society around disparity in HIV infection rates among people of color, particularly African American men who have sex with men. So that is what sort of brought me to academia. I have enjoyed it. I consider it to be a privilege to be an academic. It's one of the few fields where you sort of get paid to think about the big issues and design research and interventions to address them. And so there's something really rewarding about that. I also take my role as a gatekeeper for the field very seriously. And I just, again, I sort of think about the people who helped shape me as a social worker. And I think it's all of our duty to sort of do that for the future generation of social workers and make sure that they really are prepared to work with a lot of different folks who are experiencing lots of different challenging social conditions. I am very committed to students and student success, but I do think that it is a collaborative process. So, I put in as much work as my students put in terms of helping them to get to the finish line. I'm really excited to be here. I mean, it's cool. It's a new start. It's a first day for me too.